Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, here again to speak about a different topic or a different idea. And what I want to share today is about this idea called Easter. Now you might be wondering, what the hell does Easter have to do with reprogramming your mind? Well, first of all, you have to remember that when we talk about Easter right now, and we think about Easter, the first name that comes to your head probably is Jesus. But when you really go into history and begin to think about Easter actually originates from a goddess called Ishtar. And she's the goddess of fertility and sex. And even when you go even deeper and you begin to look into historical times, there was an emperor called Constantine. And Constantine had a problem with this idea of Judaism. So what did he do? He decided he wanted to Christianize the whole empire and decided to change what was known as an Assyrian Babylonian religion or Assyrian Babylonian celebration to what we have now as the Christian church. Now, when we think about this idea of Easter, and we think about this idea of Good Friday and Jesus dying, something that I've realized in my life and when I was growing up and I was young, was this was an event that I truly, honestly believed was external to me. I used to genuinely sit down when I was younger, go to church, have Easter Sunday, or go to school, do a little charity, get a box, give it around for people. But it wasn't until I began to get a bit older and began to come into my awareness that I began to realize that, wait a minute, guys. Easter is an event that happens within. Now, I'm going to say that one more time because it might sound a bit wacky. Easter is an event that happens within. For a long time, I've been sitting down contemplating about this idea of resurrection and this idea of the second coming of Christ and trying to think about all of these concepts in my head and thinking about how I can marry it up and use it in my day-to-day life. Because at the end of the day, I'm a massive advocate of finding information, distilling it into practical use and going with it. And what I discovered about Easter and I discovered about resurrection and I discovered about Christ is that this is an actual ideology that goes very, 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 very historical times. So what I want us to kind of think about today is this idea of going within and beginning to evoke and beginning to bring forth the energy of Easter within us. Now, you might be wondering when I'm thinking about going within, what do I mean by this? And I've said it a few times on this channel, but I'm going to have to say it again. Meditation. The only way for you to begin to have a relationship with Jesus or with Christ or with any of these ideas or energies that exist is by going within. We need to begin to get into this habit of spending time in silence and contemplating. For a long time, I've been searching for how can I begin to develop a connection with God or Jesus or Christ. And the one thing I've come to know in my own life journey is that first of all, we need to make a distinction between Jesus and Christ. That's number one. Now, when I say that, what do I mean by that? Remember, Jesus is a personality. He's a human like you and I. And then after, he became the Christ. Remember that. First of all, he grew as a human like me and you, and then he transitioned into what we now know as this being called Jesus Christ. But one thing I want you to hear today, and I want you to hear and listen to me right now, is that that same seed, that same spark is inside of you. In the Bible, there are some verses, and I'm just going to paraphrase, and I know people will probably comment and tell me the exact verse, but it says, "You will do greater works than I." So this is Jesus telling us that me and you will do greater works than he. So he's making it very clear, actually, that once again, all of us can become like him. Or not even like him, but connect to that energy, connect to that source, that Christ frequency. Because, I mean, we're going to take it even a bit more wackier. Think about this. What if the story of Easter, the story of Christ, is not even real? And this is something that I've battled with for a long time within myself. What if this story is a metaphorical allegory for the journey that we as human beings have to go in order to discover ourselves. I'm sure there's been times in your life when you felt like you were being nailed to the cross and you were being persecuted. There have been times in your life where life was so hard, so difficult, so frustrating, you could not find a way out. That's you on your cross. And I'm sure there's times where you felt so resurrected, where you've gone through the darkness, you've gone through the hard times, you've gone through all of the pain and the suffering, and you've come out on the other end. But if we even just slow it down a bit, and we just think about the story of Easter, the story of Jesus, and the story of Christ, when I really think about it, I feel it in my heart. I feel that love. If anybody says to me, what's Easter? Like my son asked me today when he woke up and I gave him a cuddle and I said, Happy Easter. And I asked him and he said, what's Easter about? And he was like, oh, it's about Jesus and we have to adore him. And I quickly had to snap him out of it and say, mate, it's about love. That's all it's about. It's simply about love. If there's one thing, and I know in this video I've been scattered with my thoughts, but I still feel inspired to share and just to share. But if there's one thing that I want us to begin to kind of utilize from this video today, is I want us to begin to spend time in contemplation. Rather than seeing yourself worshiping somebody or praying to somebody, I want you now to begin to go inside and begin to connect to that same energy, that same frequency that Jesus did. He spoke many times about him and his Father being one. He spoke in a very weird way when you think about the way he spoke. He spoke in a way where you can't really distinguish who is the person talking. Is it the personality construct or is it this higher self talking? And this is the part of you that I want you now to begin to connect to. I want you to begin to contemplate it. You know, if there's one thing that I've discovered and I've learned in my whole life, and it's not that long, I've only been alive for 27 years, but if there's one thing that I've discovered in my whole life is you have to get comfortable going inside. If you want to begin to know this being, this energy called Christ, it has to be done inside. You need to close your eyes, go inside, and begin to meditate. I don't know how you want to meditate. You can even use the name of Jesus as a mantra. Use whatever you like. Use the word Christ as a mantra. But you need to get comfortable with going inside. There's a verse in the Bible, and I'm just going to paraphrase it, but Jesus said something that if thine eye be single, and that's all I remember of it, but I'll probably do a little banner on the bottom of it. But he speaks about this idea of your eyes being single, your eyes being focused. And obviously, when I think about Jesus talking about thine eye being single, this bad boy right in the middle. But it's about learning to go within, learning to become comfortable being in silence, learning to begin to hear that still tiny voice of the frequency of the word, the frequency of the Christ. This topic is such a weird topic for me to talk about because I grew up in the church. I grew up my whole life believing in Jesus and praying to Jesus. And as I've gotten older and I've come into my awareness, I've actually begun to realize that rather than praying to Jesus, I need to learn to put Jesus beside me and see him as a brother, see him as a guide, see him as a companion, rather than somebody that I look up to and adore. You have to remember, once again, as I close this video down, is that there's only one thing you have to remember. The kingdom is inside. And by going inside, you can begin to actualize that potential to bring forth that energy of the frequency of Christ. I don't know if this video made sense, and I'm bloody nervous sharing this topic, and I don't feel like I've done a necessarily good job on it, but I felt inspired. And because I felt inspired, I shared. Let me know what you think. Have an amazing day. Happy Easter. And remember, spend time in silence contemplating on going within. And remember, the second coming of Christ is an event that happens within you, nobody else. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day. Subscribe if you found this useful.